Greetings, Poe fans. Welcome to another edition of Poe Unplugged. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I am Jeanie Smith, and we are
The Potastic Two.
Come zoom with us into the Unbook Club dedicated to the works of Mr. Edgar Allan Poe.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to Poe Unplugged. Tonight, we are going to discuss an Antarctic Mystery. And yeah, I was going to say, Dr. Jeff and I have almost the same book. And this is not by Poe, but it is a sequel to Poe's The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. And I think, Dr. Jeff, you've got that copy with you. Yeah, I think you held it up just a minute ago.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So we wanted to read this one fairly quickly after we had done Pym earlier this year, so we didn't forget too much. But I will say, and this is by Jules Verne. So, but the one thing that I was really happy about in the book was there was that one chapter that had kind of a little recap of the story.
Chapter 5.
Yes, yeah. And it helped me. Like I kind of went back through some notes of when we discussed Pym before, but that, to me, that right there really gave a nice little summation of the story to pick back up with reading it. And one other thing I wanted to say before we kind of get started on our discussion, I feel like there's going to be spoilers because I don't think we can fully discuss this book without saying some things that are revealing from this story that relate to Arthur Gordon Pym. So just spoilers, everybody that's listening that has not read either story that's going to be listening to us, later. So, welcome.
Hopefully they listened to the Zoom meeting where we talked about the Pym novel.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So what did you guys think of this, what Jeanie and I call one of the earliest fan fictions?
Well, this Poe story certainly has struck a chord because several writers have written sequels and additions to the story. So it has inspired a lot of people, and you're right, it is a fandom and an example of fan fiction.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think he did a great job. So, like, I think we had talked about how Pym is like a little different than the traditional Edgar Allan Poe, even though we definitely still had the macabre in there. But I mean, he did a great job of blurring that science knowledge with the story and kind of moving it like that. So I feel like it held true to everything. Even the ending of this book I thought was very Poe. But in a way, I felt like how Poe had ended Pym. Spoiler alert. So it kind of like, Pym died mysteriously, and we all kind of alluded to the fact that we know how he dies. And it's kind of like to read a book and know that the character is dead or going to die. It kind of almost takes something away from it. Where kind of at the end of Pym was kind of like a cut scene. Oh, by the way, he dies, and you're like, what? And you're kind of like left, kind of like either frustrated or thinking about it, which obviously Jules Verne was thinking about, like, well, how did he actually die? Because Edgar Allan Poe never told us. But to read a book knowing that this character that we love from from Edgar Allan Poe's novel, like knowing that he's gonna die, it's like almost setting yourself up for like a super hard task, like, right, to keep the reader interested in everything, knowing how it's gonna end, right? Even if we think someone's gonna die, it's different when you actually read it. But we know in this case he's dead or going to be found dead. So I think he did a really great job holding your interest. I mean, it was it's weird. It's like it's not a hard novel to read as far as like word choice, but it's like a hard novel to get through because it's very scientific. But he did keep your interest the whole time. You keep thinking like, okay, well, how is this going to end? So I thought it was really great. I mean, I think Poe would be really proud. I think he would enjoy the novel, and I think he did a really great job.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like it answered a lot of questions I had from the Poe story.
Definitely. definitely.
Then there were a few questions left unanswered, and I can share that in just a minute. But I will say that I was rooting for Pym to be alive at the end. I
For like a
just,
shocker, yeah, something, yeah.
yes.
Me
And
too.
so,
I hate when things add like I know I love Poe, right? But I hate when things add poor like when people die or things end like with a bad ending. But yeah, I guess I was kind of maybe hoping that too when I read it. But
mhm,
it's like I kind of anticipated that he would be
yeah,
dead.
it almost, he almost had to die for it to be true to Poe in a
Yeah.
way. And that just kind of, the one question that, to me, he answered, above like a lot of different things, was, we discussed in when we talked about Pym, where did Tiger go? And there were a lot of different thoughts. And like, I love, Dr. Jeff, what I remember what you said, that you, if you felt like, is he
Yes.
just, dreaming that this is a almost like ghost like or something? But and so, he kind of just picked back up, put Tiger back in, and
Mhm.
then, they found Tiger, his collar and his bones and things like that. And
Yeah,
so that was good to wrap that up, because it
Yes.
was like he was there, that he wasn't there, you know. What
yeah,
else?
for me that was like a huge thing. Like, because I know, like, I love when Dr. Jeff used to suggest that, because I had never thought about it all being his head being this like surreal experience, because he was like
Me neither.
starving and everything. But like me, I always took it very literal. I'm one of those people. So when Jules Verne added the thing with the dog, I felt like he did that kind of as a favor to Poe for like fixing that one developmental error that was in that story, that just
Mhm.
like, but the more I thought about it, it's like it's Edgar Allan Poe. There's no way that he made that type of error. Like, because everyone who's read it would say, what happened to the dog?" So the
Yeah.
more I thought about it, the more I thought maybe that Dr. Jeff was probably leading in the direction Poe was trying to create. Like, going back to this childhood dog that he was close to as a boy, as he was like having this near death experience or out of body experience. But yeah, I
Yeah.
love the fact that the dog was brought back in it, because he had seemed to be such a like he was such a character, so that was
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, and then not only was he, even though he wasn't mentioned for a long part of the book, it he was such a pivotal part of the book, because the natives on Salal Island were, scared to death, thinking he was this, monstrous figure, because he had become rabid and was biting everybody, and then they would become sick and everything else. So it was very interesting the way he tied it in, but I love that he wrapped that up.
Oh, and just a scientific point from people who don't know about rabies. Rabies is actually one of those that people, if you don't go and get like the anti-shot for it, like the rabies vaccination right away, there is no cure for it. Once it's in your system, it doesn't matter. You will die.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's one of those things. If you think you got bit by a rabbit dog, oh, I'll wait a day. Yeah, by then it's too late. You're going to die. So it's super serious. So if this dog really was rabid, like, yeah, and they started biting people, everyone bitten and are in contact with just like a saliva, like a slight break in the skin, will die. So just
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's awful. I actually read a book, oh, it's been several years ago, called Rabid, and it was all about rabies and some of the lore behind,
Because there's different
um,
forms of it and
yeah,
everything. You might not
and
even know you have like it can be the aggressive or like the dopey, like oh, like the puppy dopey. So
yeah,
yeah.
and then that some of the vampire lore came out of rabies as well. Just,
Really
yeah, it's a,
cool. I didn't know that.
I can't remember. I can look up the author of that book, but just kind of, since we're talking about it, just throwing that out there. But it's a great book, very informative. So, what else did everybody else think? Any insights into what Vern did?
So I don't want to keep talking. So sorry, I think someone else will say anything. So okay, so I might be wrong if this is the novel versus the other one I read, which is continuation. Is this the one where he makes the dog obviously white or no? Does he pinpoint the tiger as being a white dog or in this book or no? Or is that a strange discovery? which is the other continuation to this by a different author.
That's by, I think, another author. I don't
Oh,
remember.
okay, then never
reading
mind, because
that.
he
Okay.
plays into the fear of black and white. But okay, that must be I could. Sorry, guys, I didn't reread this book, and I read this one almost close to a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry,
Mhm.
but that's a different book. Just so I was checking.
Yeah, that is not.
Memory is very good. Your memory is very good.
Oh, well, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I went on Wikipedia to refresh my memory, but in the other, just a little side note, because Tiger was never mentioned in Edgar Allan Poe's book as being black or white, but in this other author, what's his name, Charles Drake, in a strange discovery, he kind of he brings the dog back in too, correcting for that maybe potential developmental error, just saying that the dog was white and that the tribal people there feared white people, like feared white men was part of the reason why they had tried in Pym to kill them, because they feared white men. And when the dog shows up and he's white, they freak out.
Mhm.
So I kind of thought that was kind of interesting, since Pym, I think he did play a little bit on color and themes in that respect. You know, with the dark and light. So I kind of thought that from the other author, which is a worth a read, guys, if you really like Pym, to kind of give you an alternative ending that's a little less macabre, but still Poe-ish. I thought it was really I thought that was also really good.
Okay. I just added in the comments Rabid by Bill Wasick and Monica Murphy. And it's got like like a subtitle, A Cultural History of the World's Most Diabolical Virus. So it's a great book. It details a lot of things about rabies from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So So the other kind of parts of the book that I thought were very interesting was the tie-ins to some of the characters in Pym. Like Hunt, who he really was. Because it was like at the big, like once Hunt, the character Hunt, came in, and the way they described him, I was like, okay, it's been a little while, you know, a couple months since we read Pym, but I'm like, this is one of the characters in Pym. It's not Pym himself, but I was like, okay, is it, you know, who is it going to end up being? And then it was Dirk Peters. And so I thought that was a really interesting twist that Verne decided to do. What did y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like, you know, like he needed that main character connection from the other book, right? Because at that point, we were believed that everyone was buried in that landslide. So you don't really have, you know, you don't really have a lot. The only two that kind of got away were those two, where it was like potentially like, hey, what could happen to them? So I mean, I think I liked his tie-in, you know, with that. Yeah, I think I might be confusing books now, so I don't want to say any more. I think because in the other book it has the same characters essentially, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I'm not sure which book had come first, Jules Verne's or Charles Dake. That's what Dr. Jeff posted. That's the one I was talking about. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a smart choice. I think it was a wise choice, you know, because you had to, you know, if you're going to continue the story, I feel like you need to bridge that, you know, to have the same characters, and then having the other guy be like the brother, you know, of the captain of the Jane. So I think, you know, I think he really, you know, he did his homework. He was obviously, you know, he did his research on the novel, so it was like really well fan fiction, well done.
Yeah, I thought so too. And yeah, because you had the two brothers connections, you know, with Captain Lynn Guy, who was the captain of the this particular ship, and then William Guy, who was the original captain of the Grampus in Pym. And so I really liked the way they brought both of those together. And because the one thing I recognized when I was starting to read it and Lynn Guy came in, I'm like, hold on. And again, it was trying to remember everything. And I'm like, Guy, guy. I know this sounds familiar. And then once all that came out, I was like, yeah, that's really cool. But I really like that tie-in. Now, the one tie-in with the other set of brothers, I thought was very, very interesting the way Verne did this. And so I'm anxious to hear you guys' thoughts. So we had Martin Holt, who was one of the sailors on the boat, on the ship currently looking for, Pym, looking for William Guy and that kind of thing when they were going out on their journey. And then it came out that his brother, and the only ones that knew about this was Hunt, who was Dirk Peters, who confessed or confided in Mr. Jorling to let him know that Martin's brother, Ned, real name, not Richard Parker, that he gave a fake name to be on the boat back in Pym, was the one, was Richard Parker who was eaten. And so I thought that was a very interesting twist. And I wondered, okay, why did Verne feel the need to change his name from Richard Parker? And so I kind of did some digging with dates. And so Verne published this book in 1897. And the coincidental story of the four men out at sea, that a real life situation happened just like in Pym, where the Richard Parker did get cannibalized by these other three, that was 1884. And so I really wonder what happened back in that time frame, of those people who had read Poe's narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym, with those coincidences. How popular was that back in 1884 when all of that happened? And did Verne feel the need to take the stigma off of the cannibalism, change his name, that Richard Parker was a fake name and his real name was Ned Holt? I'm very curious to see what y'all think, because I started going in lots of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I think he was trying to fictionalize it more and not make people think about the real life event that had happened
Yeah.
a dozen or so years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that have happened before. The greatest American hero, his name was Ralph Hinckley. But then when John Hinckley shot Ronald Reagan, his character's name was changed to Ralph Hanley. And the Green Hornet, was a radio show before a TV show. And Cato, of course, was Japanese, but when World War II broke out, Cato suddenly became a Filipino man.
Okay, that's interesting.
So sometimes, the writers do make sudden changes to get away from something, controversial or traumatic that has happened in real life or is just too close to what the fiction story is saying.
Mm-hmm. And I was really curious about that, because I just felt like that's what he was probably doing. Because if I wonder what he would have done if he had published the story before that real story came about in 1884. It just would have been very interesting. Would he have changed the name, or would he have kept it as Richard Parker? Let's see. Oh, Will says, I got kicked off while writing response, but I wanted to say that Verne took the topical thing of Arctic exploration with Shackleton, etc., and applied that to his love of Poe's work. Yeah, absolutely.
And I just think, sometimes writers like to make something their own, even if they are doing an homage or roman à clef or some sort of sequel or tie into something, they still want to add their own original touches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And I really felt like, Holly mentioned that, the science was very heavy in this book, especially with the geography and all of the, calculations of the latitude, longitude, which I thought was really neat. And just from mine and Jeannie's research on Verne of how much he dug into and made sure that the science was always credible, just this book tells a lot about that. It's definitely true. I mean, and also reading other things from Verne as well. But I felt like even though he did have a lot of science in several of the chapters, he still was able to hold my attention and build that suspense, that tension. I was afraid of not, like, when I first got the book, I was afraid of maybe I wouldn't like this as much as Pym, but I actually enjoyed it as much, if not more than Pym. Just because it just, I felt like he was really still writing in the vein of Poe. There were some little phrases and words that Poe used, that came out all the time. So all of his syntax, things like that, was very Poe-esque. Because I noticed, like, I think I remember telling Jeannie, I think it was in Pym or it was another story, I can't remember. Poe used the word extricate like 10 times in some story. And I told Jeannie, I said, I love Poe, but he's got to think of a different word. Where's his thesaurus?
Anne Rice loves the word preternatural. That one
Ah,
comes up over and over in her novel.
okay. And that's a good word, but yeah,
Mhm.
but it's like, yeah, use a few synonyms. But
Well, it's kind of like when we had school, when the kids would write, it's like the only thing that they would use was because, because. And I finally told them, I said, if you can't find another word because, I'm gonna give you a 0 for every because I find in that paper because I'm fed up.
Yeah.
So,
oh
but
goodness.
And
but
because often leads to a sentence fragment too.
Yes.
exactly. And it's like, I'm gonna leave you hanging. It's not gonna be good. It's like that dangling participle on the end is like gonna be right around your head. Um,
Yes.
but the one thing about the wording, I think, and like when Dr. Jeff was talking about the preternatural and extricate, and we all have those words that just get stuck, and it's like we can't help it. They just fit so often in so many things that we're writing, and I think it was just funny that extricate would be his because
Yeah.
he's burying everybody. So why are you extricating people?
Mhm.
Maybe there was a
Oh,
a little twist there for him. All
yeah.
right, I'm going back silent.
All right. Yeah, that is very true. And again, he only used extricate that many, like, a lot. And I was kind of exaggerating, but he did use it a lot. And there's other words that Poe uses as well, or overuses, or however you want to say it. But well, I can't remember what chapter it was in, but Verne uses unmerciful disaster, which is from, it's one of his poems. I think, is it The Raven? I can't remember. I don't remember, but I recognized it. And so I loved that he did, even just with writing this as a sequel, but he used some of Poe's own words and as his own within his own sentences. It wasn't just, him copying and plagiarizing. He really paid homage to Poe, definitely. I'm looking it up because I don't remember. I meant to look it up earlier and I forgot. All right, other thoughts? Yeah, it's in The Raven.
Yeah, I see it too. I looked it up too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And so I just thought that was really cool that, you know, Verne loved Poe from when he was younger. And you kind of wonder, 1897 was toward the end of his life because he died in 1905. So this would have been one of his last works that he did. And you kind of wonder, had he planned on doing this for years and just finally got around to it? It'd be kind of
Mhm.
interesting to know.
Yeah. The quote is, "Whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster,"
Okay.
from
Thank
the
you.
region.
Yeah. Thank you for looking the line up.
And Holly, I wanted to ask you about A Strange Discovery.
Yes.
Is that a sequel to the Verne novel, or only a different sequel to Poe? Or
Yeah, it's
do they
actually a
all exist in
sequel.
the same universe?
They're all in the same universe, but it's actually an alternative ending, like Jules Verne's. So
Oh, okay.
you would read, Edgar Allan Poe's Pym, and then go into Strange Discovery. So it gives you an
Okay.
alternative ending
Oh, I see.
with Pym, like what happened to Pym, in his story. To be honest, it's funny enough is when I've read A Strange Discovery, I actually thought it was a modern author. It had come up as a suggestion with Amazon, like, hey, you might like this book. And I was
Mm-hmm.
all ready. I think I said this in the last one. I was like, all ready to send this guy a message, right? Thinking he was like a modern writer, like, hey, you did a great job. Like, I really enjoyed this. And then I looked him up. It's the only book he ever wrote. And
Wow.
there wasn't really, I couldn't really find anything else about him. And that was it. And he wrote it like he was obviously way dead. So I wasn't sending this guy a message. But yeah, I think the difference between this setup, I don't want to say anything else, I'm sure you guys might want to read it, is that
Mm-hmm.
everything is like more off scene. So like this is like they're going on an adventure, where this story is basically they're telling it to a doctor.
Oh,
Like, you know what I
Okay.
mean? Like it's kind of like he calls the the Derek guy, or I'm saying his name probably really wrong, but they call them and he kind of tells the story, and they're like, oh, this is the story of Pym, which apparently everybody knew from like the thing that Edgar Allan Poe had posted, so everyone was familiar with the story. So it's kind of different, and then they kind of goes into the active where he tells the story on his deathbed, like the real story.
Okay.
But it's an alternative ending. It's probably a little bit more, there's a little more romance, I guess I would say, than a traditional. I mean, I don't want to say Edgar Allan Poe does write dark romance, right? If you want to analyze it, but yeah, I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
really good, but it's a different alternative ending, and that must be the one where he brings in the white dog in there, which I thought was really really clever.
oh,
Because different tribal things, like they do certain things, like any culture, certain. I remember when I was in hygiene school, the thumbs up symbol that we all use in America. There's some cultures
Uh-huh.
who find that highly offensive, and that was actually one
Yeah.
of our things that we were taught to like never give patients the thumbs up. So it's like all cultures have all different things like that, and I thought that was really interesting in Strange Discovery. So definitely worth a read. Just
mhm.
if you want to stick on the another alternative one that's maybe not
Yeah.
so macabre.
And then readers can decide which ending they want to be real, so to speak. Well,
Right.
Yeah.
that
And I
Strange
found myself.
Discovery
Yeah.
perhaps is an early example of alternative history, like Harry
Yeah.
Turtledove,
Mm-hmm.
because that writer Dake, or whatever his name is, decided, well, I don't like that, so I'm going to create an alternate version.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because now that Carmen said that, so his story did come out after Jules Verne's. So he
Right.
did.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think because when I got to the end of Jules Verne, like I said, I knew that Pym was gonna be dead, right? Or I expected him to be dead. But the way he describes him with the long nails, like sticking into like the stone, and I
Mm-hmm.
just felt to myself like Pym was like this character that I really fell in love with, essentially, right? I'm sorry, I'm like a romantic. Like I really liked Pym. I want good things to happen to him. He had survived through so much, right? Through shipwreck, cannibalism, the cold weather, I mean, he survived all this stuff to only die that way. It was kind of like,
Yeah.
man, it's kind of like, why did you try? You might as well just have died like, months ago, Then to be like stuck on that rock and then to be found in that it's almost like a degrading way, and then like found as some like mummified like creature essentially. It was
Yeah.
kind of like, ugh. Like, well, that sucks. Sorry, that was a real spoiler. But like, you know what I mean?
We warned everybody.
Yeah, like I don't know. It was good and it fit like what Jules Verne was doing, right? Like the setup was all going towards that point. So it wasn't like the ending was out of context or done poorly. I'm just one of those people where it's like Edgar Allan Poe is really good with kind of leaving gray endings, right? Leaving it up, and Pym was true to that. He kind of ended, and we're all like, well, what the heck happened? Leaving it to the reader to decide. Where I think Jules Verne, like, there was, like, the definitive thing was, hey, this is Pym's dad, and this is how it happened. I answered that question. You can all go to bed now. Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about, I forget what words you mentioned, Holly, but it made me think about the creature that at the end of Pym, that Pym sees this large, large figure. Verne didn't go that direction, but I kind of was hoping he would.
Yeah, because it's like, I guess the figure, I guess, is that Sphinx at the end, maybe, right? Like he sees, like,
Yeah,
because
that's
he kind
true.
of alluded though in Pym, like it almost seemed like it was going to be like, at least to me, like a woman. I got the feeling of it being some sort of like a woman goddess or something. But yeah, I mean, I feel like really Jules Verne did a good job of like basically following the blueprint that Poe put out. Where I think A Strange Discovery, he really goes off that blueprint and takes it from more of a like a adventure action to having almost like a fantasy, like kind of almost like the time machine kind of vibe to it. Like, you know what I mean? If you, I'm sure we've all read that one in school at least. It kind of has like, I don't want to say anything more than that, but kind of has that vibe where it kind of goes into a little bit more science fiction fantasy.
Yeah, with that supernatural kind of element. I felt like that figure was possibly something of the supernatural in a way.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was like the like an angel of death is kind of what I thought, because like I knew like he had said he died. It's kind of like that white light that we're said to see before you die.
Yeah, yeah,
For me is what I had it like, at least my mind had told me it was. That's what it means.
yeah. Dr. Jeff, were you going to respond to that as well?
No, I was just thinking how Arthur Gordon Pym seems to be a character who was much more ubiquitous and well known in the 1800s and now has sort of fallen out of our memory. But for
Yeah,
all of these people to be interested in him and want to write about him, I guess it's like, many, many readers back then knew this character, just like today, everybody knows what happens to Ebenezer Scrooge, and
yeah.
everybody knows what happens to Romeo and Juliet. And of course, we know that Superman comes from Krypton and all of those stories. But it seems like Arthur Gordon Pym was in that superstar category back then, that people
Yeah.
were so interested in him and aware of him that people kept writing about him.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder because the adventure story itself is really fun, when you think of, even though there's some horrific things that happen, but with it having the ending it did, I wonder if that romantic feeling was why he was written about so much. Because that's a really good point that you brought up. It's kind of interesting to think about. I had found another possible book. I didn't dig into it as much, but it was heavily influenced by Arthur Gordon Pym, and this was Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness, and he published that in 1931. And it's another or I'm going to read this just little blurb. The story is about an Antarctic expedition that discovers strange fossils, carved stones in the city of the old ones. And it's a novella, um, again, influenced heavily by Poe's Pym that
What was it called
Lovecraft.
again?
At the Mountains of Madness, because at first when I was doing the research for mine and Jeannie's episode that we just did, when I was just looking some things up, this happened to just be in the search, like, search things that came up. And at first, thought it was like In the Mouth of Madness, which is a movie. I think I've seen it, but it's been years ago.
Mhm.
But then I was like, no, the Lovecraft story is At the Mountains of Madness. I'll type it in the chat.
Yeah, I
So
have
there is
not read
another
that.
one, which Poe was a heavy influence on Lovecraft as well. So I just thought that's really interesting too. And so, Holly, because I didn't know about the Strange Journey that you just talked about until you did.
Yeah, I will definitely check this out.
Make sure I've got this. Oh,
My phone's listening to me. It popped right up.
ah.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's easy. So I think I'm doing anything on my telephone.
Yeah.
And then there's a contemporary author named Matt Johnson, M-A-T Johnson, who wrote a novel in 2011 called Pym, and it
Oh.
is a fantasy, a satirical fantasy inspired by Poe's novel.
Oh,
The name of it is
interesting.
just Pym, P-Y-M.
Okay.
But yes, yeah, H.P. Lovecraft, many people call him the Edgar Allan Poe of the early 20th century, and I think he was.
Yeah.
His writing talents are very different from
Mhm.
Poe's. But you know, he was the link that went from Poe then to Robert Bloch, Richard Matheson, Stephen
Yeah.
King, Anne Rice, all of the
Mhm.
20th century and much more current horror writers.
Absolutely. It does follow a trail, definitely. It's really all the connections. Jeannie and I were talking about this the other day when we were recording, and it's just like all the connections that Poe has with so many different things is just unreal, you know, and how many people he did influence, not just in horror but other things as well. All right, other thoughts on the book? Anything else? Did we love it? Did we hate it? In between? What do y'all think?
I liked it. Sorry, I liked it. I thought it was a good continuation. But it's like I read all over the place. I read every genre, so I don't just say like I read only this.
Yeah.
But probably this type of story is probably at the bottom of the barrel for me as far as a reread.
Mm-hmm.
Though I enjoyed it, would I have enjoyed it as much if it didn't continue an Edgar Allan Poe story? Probably not. Uh, but I did enjoy it, and I think he did an excellent job. So.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I feel kind of the way Holly does. It's very good, but not necessarily great,
Yeah.
or not one that I would read when I pick out a Jules Verne novel to read.
Yeah. I tend to agree with both of you. I'm going to pick up something like Around the World in 80 Days over something like this. But I'm glad I read it because
Mhm.
it really, again, any kind of thoughts I had about how Poe left Pym, this helped answer, like, even though would Poe have thought the same way? We don't know. We'll never know. But it does help you in a very literary way finish everything. And so, in like Ollie, I'll probably read the other one because I'm curious, but I've got so many other things I've got to read right now. I'm gonna have to wait. So it'll go on my list. And yeah, Will says good enough for a fan fiction. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's unreal just that early on that people were, like this was probably one of the first fan fictions that came about. That's really cool because you kind of think of it as more of a modern entity, but it wasn't. It's been around for over 100 years.
Mhm.
Yeah. Jeannie, what is your last thought on the book? Oh, I've got Mitt coming to see me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My thought was that, like you guys said, on the product of fan fiction, most of us, if we do write fan fiction, it's pretty much for our own services. We are doing it because we need to finish something or to fix something that we didn't quite like at the beginning. So I think Jules Verne used this as his way of both paying homage to Edgar Allan Poe, inciting that much of excitement into him to be able to write this, but at the same time, he did it so he could finish the story in his own mind for
Yeah.
his own pleasure. And that's one of the biggest things that I always take away when I read anything where somebody is, trying to fix, like Holly said, fix something in somebody else's work.
Yeah.
Well, and not so much that it was wrong, just that it didn't fit with the reader.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a writer named Henry Jenkins. He's on Facebook. He has written a book called Textual Poachers and other books about fandom and participatory culture. That's a scholarly term for fandom, participatory culture, and
Interesting.
how fans will use fan fiction as a way of correcting things that they either think are wrong or simply don't like and want to erase. And so they interact with the text in that way. They engage with it and make it their own and add something to it that the writer did not, but they, as the fans, want to see that happen. They want to see this couple fall in love because they never did in the novel or on the TV show or whatever, or they want to see this character didn't die, he was found alive or something.
Okay. Yeah, that's really. So you said that was Henry Jenkins?
Yeah, Henry Jenkins, yes.
Okay.
He has written quite a few scholarly books about, participatory culture and how we fans consume and digest our texts, our movies, TV shows, books that we love, and how we interact with them in every way, going to conventions, dressing as the characters, writing fan fiction, making jewelry, costumes, writing filk songs, everything.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm gonna check him out because that sounds interesting. Yeah, because I know that like I've read books and I'm like, no, the ending should not be this way. And it's very disappointing because there's been series of books that I've read before, and I think several people have the same thoughts of it should end this way, and then it feels like the author just gave up on the series and just wanted to just get it over with. And it's like you owe the fans more than just putting out something for just to put it out because you're tired of it. But yeah, so it's really interesting. So Micah, what are your last thoughts? Did you like it, dislike it, or kind of feel about the same as us?
Hey, sorry I'm in the middle of practice, but can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. A long time listener, first time caller. Thanks for taking my call. And yeah, I would not have known that this existed without you guys. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're
I will,
welcome.
yeah, thank you. I will say that I discovered a pattern between Holt, Hearn, Hurdy-Gurdy, and Hunt. And for a while, I started thinking maybe this was written by Jules Verne. And I had a drinking game where every time the H was used, I drank and I got wasted by chapter one. So I don't know what that was all about, but I'm still very glad I listened to it on audio, and thank you for introducing it to me.
Okay, well, great. Yeah, he did have a lot of H last names, definitely, in like in the Halburn for the boat or the ship, and yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I think sometimes, now this isn't the case with him, but I think current writers sometimes look in the phone book, and that's why they end up with a lot of A names or a lot of H names or P names. Whereas one person on Facebook suggested, well, look at books of baby names. That's better than
Yeah.
trying to look in the phone book, because you see the same letter over and over.
Yeah, that I guess that would be a great way to just randomly pick names. I know a short story that Holly read that I wrote. It was a romantic. I entered a contest, and it was more to get feedback on writing than it was anything else. And they randomly give you a genre, a place, or like a setting, and an item you have to include in the story. And so this one happened to be a romantic comedy. And so after Holly read it and she gave me some feedback as well, I told her that I used all the names were characters from the movie Jaws. And so it just, I don't know, it kind of, and like the town's name was Hooper Town after, the character Hooper. And so she was like, "Oh my gosh, that's really neat that you did that."
That's cool.
That was my creativity the day that I wrote it. But yeah, so it's neat to find out why do writers pick the names they do. But well, I guess on that note, I think we have closed our chapters on Arthur Gordon Pym, unless we decide later on to dive into A Strange Journey or At the Mountains of Madness. If we, eventually decide to do that, we'll just have to wait and see. But next month, we have October 29th, and we are going to be reading Hop Frog. So, and that'll be, just a little over a month away. And so we'll have to decide on November and December what everybody wants to read. So if you've got thoughts, definitely email us. If you want to do another poem, another like a short story, or just whatever you guys want to read. So, and then Will says, have you guys picked your scary movies for Halloween?
Garfield's Halloween special. It's my jam.
Oh, that's funny. I think, I don't know if I'm sure I've seen that years ago, but
Oh my god, I watch it all the time. It is so. I mean, I love Garfield. So, but the
Yeah.
Halloween
It
special,
has a good creepiness factor too.
it is. Oh my gosh, the old man. When
Yeah.
I was a kid, that has to do with a lot. Well, probably why I love like the spooky too. Besides Edgar Allan Poe, that scene with the pirate ship scared the crap out of me, and it still gives me the shivers. Like it is so freaking creepy.
Yeah, there's something about the way that not just the old man's story, but when they leave the house and then all of a sudden the boat materializes on the lake.
Yeah,
And the music too.
yeah,
Oh,
It's
interesting.
very good for a cartoon special.
Yeah.
yeah.
If I've seen it, it's been years ago. I'll have to find that and rewatch it.
Yeah.
Dr. Jeff said many Halloween movies all October on moviestvnetwork.com. Thank you for sharing that.
It's a cable channel, but I think you can get it off the air too. Movies !
Okay.
It's owned by the same company that owns MeTV.
Oh,
So
nice.
a lot of Dan Curtis movies have been showing up on both Svengoolie and Movies !
I've noticed that because my husband and I watch Svengoolie. We don't get to watch it every Saturday if we've got something going on or we're out of town, but we record them and then watch them later. And so,
Mhm.
yes, yeah, because I've noticed that he's been doing a whole lot of Dan Curtis productions. And let's see, Will says, I'm going to watch Blood Simple to celebrate its 40th anniversary. Okay, cool. Cool.
Oh,
I know.
Carmen, can I plug my audio book that's going to be out for Halloween,
Yes,
hopefully?
yes,
So
yes.
Jason Markowitz, which you guys know, is doing like a short novella. It's called The Killing Tree. I've gotten the first 2 chapters so far. It is awesome. I'll have some free codes if you want to get the audiobook for free. Just send me a message or whatnot. I'll ship it over to you guys.
Okay.
But it should be out for Halloween. It is it's a supernatural suspense. And
Yay.
guys, spoiler alert, there's a Poe quote, amongst other quotes, because the character in there is a Hitchcock enthusiast, but he has to quote
Ooh.
Poe at least once. So there is a Poe quote in there for you guys.
Fun. Oh yeah, I can't wait. I cannot wait. One I was gonna say one thing I always watch every year during the month of October is the Great Pumpkin special, with peanuts. Love that.
Love that. Love it. Love it. Love
And I always have to watch the original Halloween, the 1978. That's just one of those that you have to watch it. And then hopefully you guys will watch our Halloween special. And Micah is like our feature entertainment that night. He's going to be doing a magic show. And so that'll be at 7 o'clock on Halloween, 7 o'clock Eastern, or I'm sorry, Central Time, 7 o'clock Central Time. And it'll probably go about 2.5 hours. And we will definitely record it and put it out on our YouTube channel. So if you can't watch it live, you'll be able to watch the recording. So, but we've got some fun things lined up.
I'll be there listening, watching.
Yes.
Better be watching.
All right. So definitely think about what you want to read for November and December. If you have some thoughts on, anything that pops up, email us. And because right now, Jeannie and I haven't even gotten that far into thinking about November and December.
What's in October again?
Hop Frog.
Hop Frog. Yes.
Yeah, it's a good one. It gets overlooked so much, I think. Definitely so.
And you know what? On Hop Frog, I don't know what it is. What it's called. So I think it's on YouTube. There is the creepiest little movie based off of Hop Frog. If you look it up, it pops up. There's like these weird distorted like puppet like things. It's like done with puppets. It is the creepiest, weirdest thing. I think it's only like a half an hour. You guys should really watch it because it is disturbing and good and definitely worth. If you're going to get into the Halloween mood and do some Hop Frog, it is weird, like creepy. Sorry, like I'm not good at looking stuff up, but I don't know. I found it on YouTube. I wish Keith was here because he probably knows the heck I'm talking about. But like, yeah, I know what that is. But like, yeah, it's weird. Just look for like Hop Frog puppets or something.
Okay.
Will do.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, I think we're ready to wrap up this evening. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for reading this. And I'm really glad we did this. I think that was really a great idea. So with that note, I think we are out.
Okay. Have a good week.
Yes, y'all have a very good week, and we will see you in a little bit over a month.
5 weeks from tonight.
Yes.
I will. Congratulations, Will.
Yes, congratulations.
Yes, I think he just left.
All right.